It's 1921 in the Bronx, and the revolution is not coming fast enough for angsty 12-year-old communist Giddel Fenster. There's only one person who can help, and that's Madonna. That's the premise of writer and performer Dan Fishback's time-traveling musical, The Material World, headlining the Hot Festival at Dixon Place this summer. And for those of you who are contemporary Yiddish theater fans, we should add that Eleanor Risa has a big part in the show. Time Out New York has called this the best downtown musical they'd seen in years, and CultureBot has said that this team might be single-handedly reviving Yiddish theater with the show. So we're thrilled to have Dan on Beyond the Pale again. We had him on last year to talk about his solo show, 30 Nothing. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, Marissa. Thank you.
Almost everyone in your play is transfixed by some very grand ambition that generally involves taking over the world. And these ambitions clash in hilarious ways. What are some of the things your characters want?
Well, as you said, the main character, Giddel Fenster, this humorless 12-year-old revolutionary, wants to use Marxism to fix everything that's wrong with the universe. And in this sort of weird timescape of the show, she lives in a house with Madonna and Britney Spears, who are on a Kabbalah retreat, and she encounters Madonna, who wants to use secret Kabbalistic codes to fix everything that's wrong with the universe. And so they form this sort of bond because they both want to use really concrete dogma to change everything. So on some level, it's a show about a revolution and the capacity for change. And on another level, it's a show about just getting things done in your day-to-day life. One of the jokes of the show is that everyone in the world is either a Madonna or a Britney. You either have the capacity to move forward and take control of your life and make decisions, or you're just flailing and letting the world happen to you. And anyone who's done activist work knows that that applies to even the grandest ambitions, whether you want to just fix the entire social order, smash capitalism, make the world a better place. Those feelings of powerlessness that you can encounter when wanting those things are the same feelings that you can encounter when you're get up in the morning and have to do your dishes and clean your house, and that can seem just as insurmountable.
And talk a little about Giddel's family, too, because they also want some pretty far-out things.
Oh, yeah, well...
And how do all these people meet?
Well, technically, the plot... It's funny, your synopsis of the show was hilarious, and it was sort of the most concise and helpful that I've heard. This is a very difficult show to describe. Technically, the plot of this show is that there's this... Jewish Russian immigrant family in the Bronx in 1921, and the mother and father had been insurrectionists in the 1905 revolution, and they escaped the Tsar's police to come to America. And now that the Soviet Revolution has succeeded, they're having this debate amongst the family as to whether they're going to return to Russia. So the father is comfortable in America. He likes being able to vote, for instance. The mother really wants to go back to the Soviet Union because she feels that as a woman she would be able to be more actualized. She wouldn't be just like some dumb American housewife. And so that's one of the main conflicts of the play. Giddel sort of, as a 12-year-old, doesn't have a lot of say in these decisions. So as her parents are fighting over this and making this decision whether to go back, she hangs out with the different boarders in her parents' boarding house. In one room, there's Madonna and Britney Spears on a Kabbalah retreat. In another room, there's a contemporary young character named Ian who sits on his laptop all day, writing subversive messages on people's Facebook walls as a means of inciting revolution. Very, very ineffectively. And the day that this play takes place for him, for Ian, is the day that the Tahrir Square revolution sort of succeeds and Mubarak steps down. So he experiences that, and Giddel experiences this through him. And the song that we were playing before Revolution Hangout is the song that they sang as they're getting ready for that.
I want to go back actually to Tahrir Square, but first let's just talk a little bit more about Giddel. So I think she's such a great character because she's so socially isolated in her quest for socialist utopia. And I'm curious how you think those sides of her fit together.
Well, she's 12. And so her desire for utopia, as you say, and her desire to make the world a better place is very clouded with her general hormonal preteen angst, which I think is something that a lot of people experience, where it's hard to tell where your personal psychological desires start and where your political desires end, or vice versa. And she's really marvelously rendered by our actress Megan Stern, who's a phenomenal performer, and she really gets at this sort of anarchic sort of 12-year-old rage, as anyone with a long memory remembers. It's such a rough time, and I think, you know, there's so many intersections between the general rage of youth and a revolutionary impulse, and the challenge of growing up, of course, is retaining that impulse and shedding the sort of flailing anarchic youthfulness of it, and keeping the heart of it alive as you become wiser and more practical.
Well, it's almost like she thinks, you know, come the revolution, everyone will have to be my friend.
Right, exactly. She says many times, like, when the revolution comes, no one will be alone. When the revolution comes, everyone will be nice to me. It becomes this sort of like catch-all, which I think is you know, a failing of a lot of some aspects of the left, in the sense that, like, revolution is this catch-all solution to everything. And a lot of the play is a critique of single dogmatic systems that are supposed to fix everything. On the one hand, this notion that Marxist revolution is going to fix all the problems of the world. In Madonna's end, this notion that strict adherence to Kabbalistic, you know, mystical codes and rules will also fix the world. And what the characters encounter when they sort of intersect with Ian, the sort of laptop slacktivist, is this sense that things are probably slightly more complicated than all of this, and there's probably not one system that's going to fix everything, which is very disappointing from a Jewish perspective, because I think Jews forever have wanted to use single codes of law in order to fix everything, whether that's Kabbalah or communism, which is also another sort of form of Jewish utopianism.
There's a great line on your website: Dan Fishback is queer and Jewish and can't tell the difference between the two. How does that slippage play out in Material World?
Well, it's funny. We're headlining the Hot Festival, which is a festival of queer theater, but it's definitely like the least overtly queer thing I've ever done. Ian is gay, but his sexuality doesn't really figure into the show at all. I can't tell the difference between being Jewish and being queer, in the sense that they're both ways, the ways in which people are both apart from society and in the middle of it. They're, in a way, being Jewish trained me to be queer, because it was a way of perceiving myself as outside of the normal social order, so that when I realized there was something that placed me even further outside of it, I felt sort of like I had sort of been doing warm-ups for, like, Jewishness is like the stretching that you do for the queer marathon.
You create this really interesting contrast between Ian Fleischman, who's the contemporary young gay character who's very lazily trying to start a revolution on Facebook, and your Madonna character, who is a control freak of cosmological proportions. She wants to master Kabbalah so that she can, quote, harness the organizational, creative, and proactive powers of God himself, because she thinks she's the only person on the planet organized enough to fix the world. Why do you think these questions about productivity loom so large here in a play about revolution?
Well, I think that the big question of revolution is the question of productivity. It's like, are we going to be able to do this, guys? It's like, whenever you have a big ambition, it's like, how are people get paralyzed by big ambitions, and you know, and whether that's save the world or paint your apartment, and it always becomes a matter of, like, the mundane day-to-day tasks of making something happen, breaking things down, making to-do lists, putting the items on your to-do list into your calendar. And so Madonna is there to sort of humorously bring to light the banality of ambition. These are the things I have to do. This is what I have to do today. This is what I have to do tomorrow. And I think that's the way that people seem to be entering the show, because everyone, especially in New York, has these problems because everyone's so ambitious, everyone has so much to do. And so when Madonna starts talking about to-do lists in the theater, you hear this, like, enormous sort of, like, sigh or gasp of recognition. Everyone feels really seen by that, because it's something that we're all totally freaked out by, and no one really talks about it.